Hello everybody, welcome to the Hebrew Canaanite channel. My name is Alon.
I'm Elik.
And we had a conversation with our friend Mohammad. That was 2 days ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was in our podcast called Yalla, which is on Elik's channel.
Mm-hmm. Sound of Anarchy.
Yeah, best channel in the world, go check it out. There will be a link in the description of the video to the full conversation that we had with Mohammed. And Mohammed lives in Gaza, in a refugee camp. And for both of us, it was the first time that we had a serious conversation with someone living in Gaza. We both were born in Palestine, we live in Palestine. We are now in the occupied Palestinian city of Haifa. And we had a lot of thoughts during that conversation that we had with Mohammed, because he said a lot of interesting and meaningful things. But during that conversation, we wanted to let him speak as freely as possible, so we didn't really want to interrupt him. So now we want to share these thoughts that we had during and after the conversation with Mohammed. Elik, you want to explain more about what we're doing here?
Yeah, I think like part of it that we had also thoughts that came after, because it was some of this history that he was sharing with us we knew, but there certain stuff that it was also new, and I think it's so crucial to the conversation, and many like that you can say anecdotes, but it's not anecdotes, it's the most important stuff.
Yes.
And I felt like I kind of knew it intuitively, but to hear it from him, it was like it's approved for me many things about this issue of the Palestinian cause, the Palestinian story, which is our story as well.
Yes.
Like actually, when Israelis don't know the Palestinian history, they don't know their own history.
Yes.
And so it was revealing for us, for ourselves too. So do you want to start with just...
So let's just say very openly, what we're going to do now is watch the interview that we did, the conversation that we did, and every time we have a thought or a point that we want to raise, we will open the camera and talk about what we just watched. And in editing, I will put like segments from the interview where Mohammed is speaking, and you will see us reacting to what he is saying. Very low-tech, raw technology, as we are used to in this anarchist channel.
But it will be better if you can watch this and then watch the full interview, or go now and watch the full interview and then go back to this video after. But like they're completing each other. So
yes, it's companion videos, two companion videos, and I think a lot of what we will be saying here is it like completes the picture as far as we are concerned.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to the Yalla podcast. My name is Alon.
I'm Elik.
And today we have with us Mohammed. Mohammed, you want to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah. Hello, Elik. Hello, Alon. I'm happy to be with you again. And thanks for hosting me, and thanks for having me in your beautiful channel.
So it's funny that we have a commentary after the first second of the
yes
of just the introduction, but why? Because it is so crazy that this interview happened. Also for us, the fact, like I feel it has an historical significance.
Yes, me too.
That we have this conversation, that he, in the middle of a genocide, agreed to talk to two Israelis, and of course he knows we're anti-Zionists and all that, but still, And
yes, we don't take it for granted that he agreed to talk to us, that he agreed to appear, you know, in his full name and take maybe a risk, not maybe with like people he knows in Gaza, but especially from the Zionist authorities, the Zionist regime that might persecute him. We don't know. This is a little bit worrying. Yes, we are worried that we would get violence and arrests and hatred and ostracization from the Zionist regime, but he has much less protection.
Yeah,
you know?
he has less protection, and it's yeah, I'm still like something. I felt like this. The fact that it's happening is like we needed to take a pause to acknowledge it. That
Yes,
it happened.
yes. I must say, I do not know of any other video on YouTube where a couple of Israeli guys are talking to a guy from Gaza. I don't know such a video. Maybe such things exist, but I don't know about them.
And you will see, who share the same vision.
Yes.
Not even similar vision, same vision.
Yes,
We will
yes.
get
We
to it.
agree completely on the politics of what is going on here.
Yeah.
Like on all the main points.
Yeah, there's stuff that he knows that we didn't know, and like there's knowledge, and we know
Yes.
stuff about our society that he doesn't know. But
Yes.
but as a vision, as shared humanity, like I feel he's a member of my people more than most of the people
Yes.
who
Yes.
live here. So
Yes. Very true.
yeah, so
But the point is that when I say this, that what we are doing is so unique,
yeah,
and I think it's just factually unique, or at least very rare, I don't feel that it's a testament to what we're doing more than it is a testament to like the craziness of the situation.
yeah,
The craziness of the situation. We live no more than an hour and a half drive from him. He lives no more than an hour and a half drive from us. And yet, this situation where we are speaking is so rare, and it has to happen through the internet and through YouTube, and he had to get to know us through someone that we got to know through this channel, all this roundabout way.
yeah.
I think it's just insane.
Yeah, it's insane, but I'm happy we got to this. For me, it's the first crack in the wall.
Yes.
This interview that we did, and hopefully, if they don't destroy Gaza completely, yeah.
So this is the first crack in the wall, and hopefully this is the start of the process that will topple the wall.
I'm Mohammad Zrayi, a Palestinian refugee from Gaza Strip, but originally I'm from a small village near Gaza called Tel Jammeh, ethnically cleansed in 1948, and now I live in Deir Al-Balah refugee camp, middle of Gaza Strip.
So it's been 20 seconds more into the interview, and already I have another thought. The way that Mohammed starts presenting himself is he says, I am a refugee. And I think, in some sense, we could have ended the interview there. And
Right.
all the content, all the important content would have been there already. Because the crux of the issue is that there are millions of people who were kicked out of their land, who were kicked out of their homes, whose homes have been stolen from them, whose homeland has been stolen from them. This is summed up in this one word, refugee. And all of the problems in this area stem from this one thing, that there are millions of refugees who are the result of this Zionist project. And this is the one thing that all Zionists without exception, in my experience, do not understand and do not acknowledge. And I think this is the root of all their misunderstanding and of all their insanity. If they understood this, they would immediately drop this ideology of Zionism because they would understand the result of this ideology. They would understand why the Palestinians are doing everything that they are doing. Because they are refugees, because they want to come back.
Yeah, and I think when I grew up in, for example, in a Zionist, left-wing Zionist, I knew that the conflict started in 67.
Yeah.
And that Gaza is a territory we occupied in 67. We left it in 2005, and from some reason they don't leave us alone, even though we left. Now, of course, Israel didn't left, and most of the people, I guess, who watch this know that, and we're going to talk about it in the like Mohammad will talk about it in the interview. But it's not that. It's these people are still refugees. They never accepted living there, and they want to come back home. And this is what the so-called conflict is about, right? And because and it happened to them in the past, and it keeps happening to them in the present.
Yes.
Like that's why Palestinian talking about the ongoing Nakba. And I think in history, when people will look at it, it will look as some people already understand it as one ongoing event.
Yes.
And I think that's the right way to frame it.
I never enjoyed any Palestinian faction because that I felt that no any Palestinian group or any Palestinian faction represented my values. Until the initiative came along, I'm a member in the One Democratic State initiative, and its coordinator in Gaza.
Yes, we will talk about our shared vision, which brought us together in the second part of this conversation. But I just want to make a small comment that when you said that you never found yourself in any political faction in Palestinian politics,
like this.
I feel the same way about Israeli society. I never found myself in any political faction in Israeli society as well, and this we share.
Yeah.
And I think this is part of what brought us together, right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I also felt immediately, I feel the same. Yeah.
Yeah. So here is another very interesting point. And I think it sheds a lot of light about how the society that exists between the river and the sea, that is in Palestine, is divided and is constructed. So we have two groups that are very much separated, and inside each of those groups there are a lot of different opinions which relate to this division and separation and how it should be maintained, how we should deal with this division and separation. And I think in between those two groups there are people like us and like Mohammad who just don't want this division, do not want this separation, do not want this situation where one group is taking away from another group and want to find ways of living together, but really, equally, justly. Like, you know, I might sound right now like those peaceniks, like those people who talk about peace. And what they mean is, let the situation remain as it is on a material level, and let's just not fight anymore. This is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the situation should change fundamentally. That is, Muhammad should stop being a refugee. We should, his life should become better. He should get back what belongs to him, and then we could live together. Not just let's just live together. That's not what I'm saying. And this is I think the main difference between the fake left, the Zionist left, and real left, which requires redistribution of resources in an equal and just way.
Yeah, and I will add that the people that, he said, I never found myself in any of the political options, and we feel the same. And I think many people from the pro-Palestine movement all around the world feel the same, that they don't find, like today was the election, like we're recording after probably Trump won, right? Like
Yes, Trump probably won the US election. This was today.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen, but I cannot say I'm sad in any way that the Democrats lost.
Yes.
Like this is...
We might be sad that Trump won, but we are definitely not sad that Kamala Harris lost.
Yeah, and I think when people understand that it's all a charade and the political options that are suggested to us are not real options.
Yes.
So this is what unifies us and Mohammed and the people who want options that we have to imagine it because no one offer it to us. We have to create it, and that's what unite us, people of our kind, let's say, and it's a global community. It's not just here in Palestine, but I think if we learn to do it here in Palestine, it can bring seeds of hope to liberate many places in the world, not just here.
Yes. I would like to take it even one step further. All of the world politics at this moment, as far as I know, is this kind of thing. It's states, which are just ways of separating and dividing people. And inside those states, there is a discussion about how to live inside our own group, our own imagined group, and how to deal with the tensions that rise between our group, and other groups. And all of this kind of discussion, for me as an anarchist, for you as an anarchist, I think is just ridiculous from start to end. We do not want to have this discussion. We want to have a different discussion. And we think that Muhammad also wants to have a different kind of discussion. And this is why we never find ourselves in this thing called politics. We find ourselves in something that is real politics, I think, which is discussing what is really going on and how to really make things better without all the imagined separation and division into those groups.
Gaza, it's a small area, but it's one of the most densely populated regions in the world. However, Gaza wasn't always a densely populated city. The majority of people in Gaza Strip, they are refugees. So Gaza is the largest refugee camp in the world.
I heard a lot of interviews about Gaza of people who describe it from me who are not from there, like Norman Finkelstein, Ilan Pape, and they give a lot of the biggest concentration camp, the biggest open-air prison.
Yes.
But now, like Mohammed said, what it is, it's the biggest refugee camp in the world. It's a refugee camp.
Yes.
And I think that's, first of all, he's from there, but it's also the most accurate, and it's important to be loyal to the reality, to be accurate with your words. And I think, again, like we talked about it before, but this is the core of the issue. And we have to go back to it again and again and again.
Gaza is the largest refugee camp in the world, hosting around 1.7 million refugees from central and southern cities of Palestine, like Yalla, Asqalan or Ashkelon, Asdod, Beersheba, other cities, especially the coastal area. So they were expelled from their villages as a part of Plan Dalet, the Hebrew letter D, which devised by the first Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion. Plan Dalet aimed to completely cleanse the coastal area from Akka to Gaza. And unfortunately, a goal largely achieved.
So Muhammad mentioned Plan Dalet. And I must say that I was quite ignorant about this. I heard about it, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And following Mohammad mentioning it, I was like, okay, let me look up on Wikipedia what it is. And I was amazed. I looked it up on Hebrew Wikipedia, which I think is always a very interesting exercise.
Yeah.
Because Hebrew Wikipedia is a kind of propaganda. It's a kind of, okay, I will say in advance, we want to read to you this paragraph, but I will say even before. What happens to, so an Israeli person, a Jewish Israeli person, hears about something. He hears about Plan Dalet.
Yeah.
He hears about the 1948 war. He hears about all kinds of stuff. And they want to look it up and understand what it's all about. So they go probably to Wikipedia, or maybe 10 or 20 years ago or 30 years ago, they would go to history books or to textbooks that they learned from in school, or whatever. And they read from there. Right now they go to Wikipedia and they read from there. And already, like there is like a bubble that wraps them, okay? That is around them. And this bubble is, first of all, the Hebrew language, because they will not look it up in English. They will look it up in Hebrew. And when they read about things in Hebrew Wikipedia, they get a very specific representation of things. And I must say, I know that there are a bunch of people who are working overtime on taking all the Wikipedia articles in Hebrew and phrasing them in certain ways, and the votes in Wikipedia are controlled by people who are very much extreme Zionists and want to present things in certain ways, and they are not intellectually honest. So forth and so on. So this is part of the propaganda and indoctrination, the machine of Zionist propaganda and indoctrination that is working on everyone who is Jewish Israeli. And here is an example.
Okay.
So I'm reading from, this is my phone, I'm reading on Plan Dalet from Hebrew Wikipedia, and I'm translating to English. Plan Dalet was a plan that was prepared by the Haganah organization in March of 1948. Already, this is factually accurate. What the name of the organization is Haganah. Haganah in Hebrew means defense. IDF, צבא הגנה לישראל, צה"ל, צבא הגנה לישראל, IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. They keep insisting that they are defending, not attacking, defending.
The Haganah turned to be the IDF,
yes,
right?
Yes.
The same
then.
commanders who are commanders in the Haganah became the officers in the IDF.
Yes. So already the brainwashing and language games begin. So March 1948, during the first stage of the War of Independence again. War of Independence. It's not the 1947 or 1948 war. It's not the Nakba, of course it's not the Nakba. It's the War of Independence, because everything is from our angle. We wanted independence and we fought for independence against the evil Arabs that didn't want us to have independence, and we beat them in the War of Independence. And you see how this is, what is a War of Independence? A War of Independence is something that a colonized nation does, right?
Right.
When you are colonized, you do a war of independence to free yourself from your colonizers.
Zionists will tell you until now that Zionism is an anti-colonial movement.
Yes.
They will say it until some people say it still.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you see, I read one sentence and already so much to say about the game of language.
Yeah.
The idea behind this plan was moving from a defense strategy to an attack strategy. Suddenly we can talk about
and
attack.
This is, when we talked about it, did you tell me what do you remember on Plan Dalet? So I already knew it from the Ilan Pappes book and Benny Morris, but I also remembered how I learned it about it in school, and that's what I remember. It's
the exact same sentence.
At some point we moved for. That's how we learned about it. This is when I broke out of this, I stopped calling this we. It's not we anymore. But yeah, so we move from defense to attack, and that's why we won, you know? It's
Yes. And I think this is a great example of another phenomenon of Zionist indoctrination and propaganda, that they have like a tool for everything. They have, okay, so this happened and we need to frame it in a certain way to get people to cooperate with the narrative. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of specific tools on how to frame every single thing. And this tool of, okay, so what was planned? Dalet, to move from a defense strategy to attack strategy. This is like this cliche that they use, and they used it in the school textbooks that were used to teach Elik the history, that is, brainwash Elik. I personally don't remember hearing about it at all, about Plan Dalet.
They teach about it in history lesson.
I don't remember being taught about it at all, but if they even talk about it, they talk about it in a very specific framing that is always ready-made to make your mind go in a very specific way.
But also, I don't know, maybe it's maybe I go too far here, but look what happened. Like, it's very revealing, because I remember why did we win? Because we stopped being just, defensive, we started being offensive. What Israel is saying now, we're not just defensive like we've been in the 7th of October before. Now we have to go on the offense and we win, like we won in 48. And I think Bibi thought for some reason that this will be like another victory of Zionism, which, I think it's going to be the opposite. I think this, what happening now starts the death of Zionism, because I don't think, that's how, I think history is going to remember it. Yeah, but I think you can make this parallel, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, so we continue reading.
Yeah.
Okay. So the goal of the plan was to create territorial continuity. More specifically, Jewish territorial continuity in the territory that was recognized as the Jewish state according to the partition plan, to the UN partition plan, and to create a situation that would make it easy for the defense forces to stop the invasion of the Arab armies.
Mm-hmm.
Creating a Jewish territorial continuity, if you say it outright, that is ethnic cleansing. This is what it means.
Yeah.
But they always find these roundabout ways to present it as if in a academic language, intellectual language, that is that presents everything as we just wanted to create Jewish territorial continuity. What is the problem with that?
And it's also military language.
Yes.
And also now what were they doing at the moment where they're ethnically cleansing northern Gaza. Mm-hmm. And they also say it like in a military, we just need to capture it for a military because we're in a war, right?
Yes.
We need to... And at the same time, they're preparing settlers to move there. It's exactly the same thing,
yes,
just with more technology and more extermination and more brutality than it was then. But it's same,
Yes, same idea.
Same idea.
And look at how, when they describe it, they already make the excuses along the way. Creating a Jewish territorial continuity in the territory that was recognized as a Jewish state by the UN partition plan. Yeah. Yes, we are just taking what is ours. Yeah. Everything is okay.
Yeah.
And we want to stop the invasion of the Arab armies. Everything makes sense. There's no problem with what we are doing. Everything we are doing is A-okay and completely moral. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
After they were expelled from their homelands, the coastal population now lives in refugee camps in Lebanon, in Syria, in Jordan, in Gaza Strip, and in the West Bank. And people being exterminated now in Jabalia refugee camp, southern of Gaza Strip, southern Gaza. As I speak to you, they are exterminated. They are the direct grandchildren of those expelled from Jaffa, Asdod, Asqalan, and other cities and the villages around these cities.
So Muhammad is talking about how right now they are bombing and murdering the grandchildren of the people who were kicked out from their homes in 1947 and 1948. And I already knew that this was the case. But listening to Muhammad just explain this in the most simple of ways, in the most direct of ways, it kind of shocked something in my brain. It was like, so here is what happened. They came, they kicked people out of their homes, they concentrated them in this refugee camp called the Gaza Strip, and they don't want them to come back because they want to keep the land and the property. And right now, because those pesky Palestinians dare keep existing, they want to wipe them off the map. They want to annihilate them completely. So the same people that they kicked out, their direct descendants, now they're trying to kill them. And it's striking to me how very simple this situation is.
You kick them out, they want to come back, you don't want, so now you kill them, basically. That's what's happening.
And this is Zionism in a nutshell.
Gaza consists of three main cities. The main city of Gaza, Khan Yunis, and Rafah, surrounded by 8 refugee camps. We have Shati and Jabalia refugee camps in the north. In the south, also we have Al-Maghazi, Deir Al-Balah, Al-Nusayrat, Al-Bridge, Deir Al-Balah where I live, and Khan Yunis and Rafah. And these camps are managed by UNRWA. It's a United Nations agency established to provide basic services to refugees, such as education, healthcare, hosting. So until today, the refugees have not returned because Israel prevents their return, as you said. So UNRWA continues to operate to this day.
So, it's interesting, the issue of UNRWA.
Yes.
Because now, as we all know, Israel started a war on UNRWA, which I see it as another part of the genocide. It's another part of the wish to kill the Palestinian cause, the right of return, all that. It's all combined together. And so I just started to read a book. Fortunately, I have a Kindle version of it. It's called The Biggest Prison on Earth. And it's the history of, it's like a sequel to the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. It was written by Ilan Pappé. And it's a very interesting book. And I just we did the interview and I ran into a part that's talking about UNRWA and how Israel mentioned UNRWA in 1967, because what happened that Israel expelled these refugees to Gaza, and then it occupied them again in 1967.
Yes, it was controlled by Egypt, and then it was conquered by Israel from Egypt, and Israel regained control of the Gaza Strip.
And what do we know about UNRWA from the point of view of Israelis? That it's the enemy, it's the place that educate the Palestinians to hate us. That's what Israelis believe. And now I want to read a quote from that Ilan Pappé writes in this book about UNRWA. Okay, so I will read a bit and then we will discuss it a bit. So his words, Moshe Dayan, would be the bedrock of the future of Israeli stance on the issue, which is the refugee issue. Okay? In order to let the problem die down, which is the refugee problem, the Israeli government should not initiate any discussion on the refugees. No need to awaken sleeping dogs, Dayan added. For internal consumption only, Dayan reminded his colleagues that Israel bore no responsibility for the refugee question. Just now, we heard how they were all expired and no responsibility.
Yeah.
By that, he meant not only historical accountability, but also the need to care for them in the present, because Israel occupied again, and it had a responsibility of occupying force, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was UNRWA's realm of authority, said Dayan, and Israeli ministers should not challenge it. And then he said, Egypt did us a great service running the refugee camp with UNRWA in the last 19 years. We should keep it in UNRWA's hands. So, I see this, like, he says now UNRWA, that he thanks UNRWA's existence for making us not need to care about these people.
Yes.
They created the situation that UNRWA needs to take care of them, and now they turn UNRWA into the enemy, which, if they will succeed in destroying UNRWA, it means no aid for the Palestinians, it means no education, it means no health.
Yes, like
facilities.
Mohammed tells us in the conversation that we had.
Yeah.
Everything that the Palestinians in Gaza have is dependent heavily on UNRWA. Without UNRWA, there is no life in Gaza.
Yeah.
And this is why they want to destroy UNRWA. Because they know that once they destroy UNRWA, then the possibility for life in Gaza is very much reduced. And this is why we say that the war that Israel is conducting against UNRWA is an integral part of this genocide.
Yeah, this is part of the genocide, and a lot of time people say, like, why do you say genocide in Israel and we're right about it? It's a war, maybe we kill. Look, there's only 42,000 dead, which we know is much more.
It's just a wrong number.
But genocide is a holistic thing. It's like you destroy all the conditions of life, and this part of it. But the genocide is also part of its intention is to kill the idea of the right of return, which UNRWA is part of, like, keeping it alive. And I think, but it also shows another thing, right? They said now we have to kill Hamas, right? And we know that Bibi supported Hamas for a long time. They want to kill UNRWA, but now we know that they needed and they used UNRWA, because then it meant they don't need to take care of these people as part of part of international law, that occupying power have responsibility for the people it's occupying. And it used UNRWA not to take this responsibility. So we see this pattern of you create something and then you use this thing as reason to conduct a war of annihilation.
Yes.
This is the part of...
And this is the master mentality, right?
Yeah.
As long as they are useful, we will use them.
Yeah.
When they stop being useful, then we say that they are our enemy and that we want to destroy them, and we use them as an excuse. We always use. And you
vilify the people that you supported before, and the organization that you supported. You turn them like, oh, this evil, Hamas, even UNRWA, it's the same.
And you make up stories, and you say the people from there are so many people from UNRWA that were part of 7th of October. You make up stories. You don't bother proving anything. And you use these stories to vilify those organizations, and then you use everything, using.
Yeah.
These camps are managed by UNRWA. It's a United Nations agency established after UN Resolution 194. This resolution is so important for Palestinians. It issued in 1948. It's important for Palestinians because it stipulated the right of return for Palestinian refugees who had expelled from towns and villages in 1948. So pay attention to this, pay a close attention to this point. Israel's acceptance of this resolution was a condition for its membership in the United Nations.
Wow.
If you, Israel, accept this resolution, I will accept you in in the United Nations as a member, and Israel accepted.
So again, Mohammad is telling us something that we didn't know, or that we didn't know very well. And why does Mohammad know about this more than we know about this? Because it's important for him, as a Palestinian living as a refugee in Gaza, to know about these things. And for us, it's important for the Zionist regime that controlled our education that we don't know about these things. And it's very important to Zionist society that no one knows about these things. So, Resolution 194 by the UN General Assembly. And I went, and again, I just went to Wikipedia. This time I went to English Wikipedia to read about this because I wanted the actual information. And here is Article 11 from UN Resolution 194. Refugees wishing to return to their homes and live at peace with their neighbors should be permitted to do so at the earliest practicable date. And that compensation should be paid for the property of those choosing not to return and for loss of or damage to property which, under principles of international law or equity, should be made good by the governments or authorities responsible. So, when I read this thing, I start to feel like when you're trying to rent an apartment and the landlord sends you the agreement to sign. So, being the son of a lawyer, I know that you need to read this very, very carefully.
Yeah.
And look for all the traps and all the small things that are, all the small words and choices that are put there to fail you. And when I read this, you know, I felt the same stench that comes from these agreements that they sent you. And I was like, okay, I need to be in watch out mode. Refugees wishing to return to their homes. So far, wonderful. If they wish to return to their homes, then they should be allowed to do it. Although already a little bit. What if they don't wish to return to their homes? Why wouldn't they wish to return to their homes? Like, if I was kicked out of my home, I would probably wish to return. Maybe if I didn't wish to return, maybe something happened in between the time where I was kicked out and the time where they asked me if I wish to return. And maybe that thing made me not want to wish to return. And maybe that thing is that they ruined the place where I was born. They changed it completely and they made it into a hostile environment where I don't want to return. Maybe they gave me reasons to not want to return. Speculation.
Yeah.
Let's go to something.
Wild
speculation. But let's go to something more concrete. And live at peace with their neighbors. Should be permitted to do so.
And maybe the neighbors is the people who took their homes. Maybe.
Yes, maybe. So why wouldn't they want to live at peace with their neighbors?
Yeah.
And also and maybe, do you require the neighbors to want to live at peace with them? Why this stipulation on the people wanting to return to their homes and not such a stipulation on the people who want to stay there? They shouldn't want to live at peace? Interesting. Conditions only on one group. Interesting. And again, and now I go to something even more clear, I think, which exposes a very, like a core manipulation trick by Zionists, which is they always put stipulations. Stipulations upon stipulations upon stipulations. We want to do the right thing. We want to give you back everything that we stole from, didn't steal from you. We want to make everything right. But first you have to agree to this and this and this and this and this. And if you do not agree, then it's your fault then that we didn't give it back to you. And also, if you do agree, we won't give it back to you. This is Zionist logic. And I think that whenever we talk to... we were talking in the conversation that we had with Dan about your wonderful friend, whose name I will not say not out of respect for him, but out of respect for Elik, who doesn't want to make it personal.
You can say if you want.
I won't.
Okay.
And he said, yes, I would love to join a movement that leads to a situation of equality and peace for all. But in his words already, he put the stipulation that will not lead to me being a minority in a Muslim country.
Yeah.
And then I sent him the website of the ODSI, the One Democratic State Initiative, which Muhammad is part of. And through this initiative, we got to know Muhammad. And then his reply to me, he said in the original messages, he said, I will be there fighting with all my might. And then...
so ridiculous.
Yes, ridiculous. And then his reply to me was, I don't think he even went into the website.
Yeah.
I think he just disqualified it immediately, and he said, this proposition would lead to me being a minority in this country, and to me living in a Muslim state, so I don't want to even discuss it. So this is what the Zionists do. They put conditions on everything. They put conditions on justice.
Yeah.
This is what they do. And they put conditions in such a sly way that those conditions will never be met. Because those conditions are phrased in a way that they can always say that the conditions were not met.
But the funny thing, like, I can understand the Zionist fear, right? Like, okay, but it's not an argument, the whites were minority in
South Africa.
In South Africa. And
yes.
You think like, okay, the fact that you're a minority controlling a majority make it even worse, right? Like,
yes.
You being a minority.
Let's expose this as well. You're already a minority. This is just a fact that between the river and the sea, you are a minority. But you are a numerical minority. You are not a minority in the sense that you have all the power. If we count power, you are the majority. If we count actual numbers of people, you are the minority.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's like, imagine like group of minority controlling majority who says like, we don't want to give a power because we are a minority and we are afraid. But
yes.
like,
yes, exactly.
The fact that you're a minority makes it even less legitimate, not
yes.
more legitimate.
Yes, but to him, those people who are not citizens of Israel, so see what they do. They put the boundaries and they say those people are not counted, just not counted in the elections, not counted.
Yeah.
They do not count. And then they say we are the majority.
Yeah.
Because you took millions of people and you took them out of the place, and now you are the majority, and I don't want to be the minority. But you already are the minority. All we are asking you is to acknowledge reality that you are the minority.
And if they would say, okay, I understand it's a problematic situation, but I am afraid that in this transition of power we will become vulnerable, you could have a discussion, right?
Yes, how do we prevent you from losing your rights? Yes, but they don't want to have the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, let's continue. So, and live at peace with their neighbors should be permitted to do so.
Yeah.
Not it should happen. They should be permitted to do so. What does permitted mean? Should you give them? What if they are poor and their houses now cost millions of shekels and they cannot pay that? Why are they poor? Because you took all their money, because you took their house, which is now worth millions of shekels, and now they cannot buy the house again, right? Mm-hmm. So they should be permitted to do so formally.
Yeah.
Not actually. This should be given back to them. Okay. At the earliest, practicable date. And then this allows, when I read this, I was like, okay, so probably the Zionists are now saying it's not practicable. You know what? This is exactly what they say to us all the time. It's not practicable. Right of return, why do I object to right of return? Yes, it might be just, but it's not practicable. This is the argument of the Zionist left.
You know what I thought now?
Yeah.
This should have been written, but opposite. You could say this to the Zionists. If you want, okay, you took the land by force, but if you want to stay, but you're, like, you know, if we would twist it around...
If you want to live it in peace with your neighbors, and if it is practicable...
then it would be just.
Then you should be permitted to do so.
Yeah, like you say to the victims, if you... like you understood, it should be twisted around.
It should be the opposite, yes. Okay, and so forth. We can continue this for hours, and so forth and so on. Let me see if I have any more remarks about this. Yes, okay. So I continued reading on Wikipedia, and I found out that in the beginning, the Arab countries surrounding Palestine and Israel objected to Resolution 194, and also Palestinians objected to Resolution 194. Why? Exactly because of what we said now. Because they felt that it was a ploy to legitimize the existence of the State of Israel, that is the thing that was created on their land, and to hold by force their land and to not let them come back, and to legitimize the theft of their property. Yes, they should be permitted to do what we said. But now, Muhammad told us, Resolution 194 is the most important thing to us, because it is the last shred of formal recognition that they have for their right to return to their homeland.
Yeah.
And this is something that I found very sad, that in some way the thing that the Israeli right wing is saying, they're saying, just use enough violence, put enough pressure on them, and this will weaken their position in the negotiations that will maybe happen someday. So continue and continue and continue and continue. And unfortunately, this is actually the case, I think. Yes, it is true that when Israel takes more and more and more and more from the Palestinian, their position is weakened. And then they have to agree to more and more and more things that legitimize the atrocities that they endured, the things that were taken from them. And yes, I think, in some sense, this is how the world works. If you use enough force, you can make anyone agree to anything.
Yeah, like the song of, like this Bo Burnham song, "This how the world works."
Yes,
like
yes.
The might makes right.
Might makes right. This is the approach of might makes right.
But, okay.
Yes, so exactly because this is how the world works, I do not want to legitimize this approach of might makes right. There is a different force working here as well. And this different force is something called morality, is something called spirit, is something called solidarity, is something called compassion, is something called camaraderie, is something called justice. And when you consider these other forces, they resist this law of nature, law of nature, that is might makes right. And because I don't think that might makes right is a good thing, this is why I want to strengthen all these other things that resist this approach of might makes right. And this is exactly the difference between us and the Zionist left, because the Zionist left, they do not want to use, they do not want to connect with morality, with camaraderie, with compassion, with solidarity, with justice. They do not want to connect with these things. Why? Because they counteract this thing that is might makes right, which is exactly what they want to use to keep all the things that they have, but not rightfully.
Okay, and like I have something to add.
Yes,
but
add.
to add it, because I think on the surface you're right, Mike's make right on the, like the Zionist, but I feel because, and this is something that takes me to Frantz Fanon, who said like that colonialism is a dumb machine that knows how to act only by force. That will bring to Zionism full defeat. And I think like if and I think like in a way there's another force that kind of work underground, like
Yes.
below the surface,
Yes.
that will bring to its defeat, and that's what we're seeing right now. That now what died in this Gaza genocide is the PR machine. That I know that the PR machine, we can say okay, but it's only PR, but
No, it's not only PR.
it's not, because we know
PR is so we see how much language is important here.
yeah, and I think the world, a big part of it, huge part of it, is not buying it anymore.
Yes.
And I think that's the beginning of the end, because the moment that PR works, we know that Zionism still is like any other colonial project. It's depends by the support of the empire and support of big money, and this will not work without external support. And the world see what's happening now. And
Yes.
and when you see all this, because Zionism worked because it knew how to sustain, to maintain some image of like moral army. And when the IDF soldiers now are behaving in this way that people look and it's like, what is this? Who behave like this?
Yes.
People, in a way, I don't think they understand what they're doing, but it's kind of suicidal. It's like, we know that we cannot keep this image of morality. So now let us celebrate the crimes that we always did, but now in the open, because we know we lost. It's kind of admission of lost, I think.
That's interesting. I never thought about it this way.
That's how I see it now.
Yes, and I think how we know that this PR is critical is just by examining what the Zionist project is investing in, just on a very direct way. How much money is going into PR? So much money is going into PR, and this proves that the PR is a critical part of the Zionist project, and this proves that once the PR fails, then in some way this is the beginning of the end. And I want to compare this to what happened in Germany almost 100 years ago. So Germany started operating in this under this assumption of might makes right, and it started taking over more and more land, more and more people. And in this process, one of the things that happened is that they wanted to exterminate the Jewish people. And during this project that they started, they also killed my grandfather's entire family. And your grandfather and grandmother as well are Holocaust survivors?
Like my
right?
grandparents from my father's side are the only... no, not the only, but from my grandfather's side, he is the only survivor,
Yes.
And he had like 10 brothers and sisters.
So?
Reminding to what's happened now in Gaza when people say...
Yes, I lost 20 of my family. Like Mohammad told us that he lost 20 of his family members. So Elik's grandfather lost 10 family members. My grandfather never told me exactly how many family members he lost, because it was difficult for him to talk about it. He said, my entire family, except for my sister and my mother.
Yeah.
My entire family. I'm sorry. So I had a moment there where I suddenly thought what it's like to lose your entire family. And I had a thought what it would be like for me if I lose my entire family. And just, thinking about this for a moment brought me horror in levels that I could not contain.
Yeah.
So what it would be like for it to actually happen, I cannot imagine.
Yeah, it's horrifying just to think about it, to feel it for a second.
Yes. So I want to bring this back to Germany. And Germany used this logic of might makes right. And we see that, yes, they kind of achieved their goals of kicking out the Jewish people, not exterminating the Jewish people completely, but kicking them out. But this came at a cost. And this cost is something that is less immediately and materially apparent than the direct results of this project that they conducted. But I think it is no less significant, and I think in many ways it is even more significant, more meaningful, because the long-lasting results of this project that they had, no one knows exactly what they are, but we already see it. We see how they also had to create a project of PR, how they had to present themselves as those people who overcame their racism, their hatred, and they faced the crimes that they committed, and now they are the ones who learned the lesson.
Leading the world in
Yes.
progress and whatever.
We are no longer Nazis, but this project, this PR project, is a lie. First of all, it's just not true, and second, it is it creates a contradiction, like the contradiction of the Zionist left, for example. It creates a contradiction in which they have to do this show of how much they learned. And as part of this show, they have to support the state of Israel. The German myth of, saving themselves, its internal logic now forces them to support Israel in the genocide that the Israelis, the ones that they kicked out and concentrated in that ghetto called Israel, are now committing to the Palestinians. So you see, they started this logic of might makes right. They used this logic, and now they cannot get away from it.
Yeah.
Now they have to continue supporting another genocide.
Yeah, like they thought they got rid of it, and it continue hunting them.
Yes, it continues to haunt them. Yeah. And I must say to any German who is watching now, please know that if you do not face this thing that you did truly and honestly, if you do not really bring healing to your society, which is the same thing as bringing healing to the entire world, then it will never leave you alone. It will always haunt you. Like I say to the Zionists, what you are doing now, the genocide you are doing now, will always haunt you. And now you are running away more and more and more from your crimes, and this makes you commit more and more crimes. It's like you start from a small lie, and then you have to tell more and more and more and more lies to cover up the original lie. And the only way to stop this vicious circle is to stop and truly face who you are, what you did, what you are doing, and truly bring healing. And the more you postpone this process, the more you dig yourselves into the hole, and the more difficult it will be to get out of this hole that you dug up for yourself. And Elik and myself, we are already climbing out of this hole. We are trying our best to climb out of this hole. But you are always pulling us down. Why? Because you want to dig further in, because it feels safer and warmer for you. But it's not really safe, and it's not really warm. And at some point, you're going to have to climb out. And the sooner, the better.
The refugee case it's the central case in Palestinian struggle. It's our case. It's a people expelled from their homeland, and they want to return. If you want us, if you don't want us to return, that means you don't give us any choices, any solution. So they won't be peace.
So this is a very important point, that because the most important thing to the Palestinians is the fact that they are refugees, the fact is that there will never be peace without acknowledging the right of return for Palestinians. And if you continue reading in the Wikipedia article for Resolution 194, you see the segment about the Israeli view of this resolution. And in it, I will read to you a quote from Moshe Sharet, who was one of the prime ministers of Israel. So it says, Israel also argued that it did not have to compensate refugees for land and property that they had abandoned. In a press conference in 1949, Moshe Sharet stated the following: to help finance resettlement projects in neighboring countries, Israel is prepared to pay compensation for land abandoned in Israel by Arabs who have fled. That's lovely, right? This, again, can only be arranged as part of a general peace settlement. For when peace is negotiated, the payment of compensation by Israel for land abandoned by Arabs will not be the only financial item discussed. Israel will claim damages from the aggressor states for losses sustained as the result of their aggression and the crushing burden of war expenditures inflicted upon its population. So I think that this is simply an amazing quote that exposes so much.
And so I didn't understand it at the beginning.
Let's go over it more slowly. Okay. To help finance resettlement projects in neighboring countries, Israel is prepared to pay compensation for land abandoned in Israel by Arabs who have fled. Sounds lovely, right? Yes, Moshe Sharet, agrees that there was a moral problem with kicking out the Palestinians, and he agrees that Israel should compensate them in some way. What are they prepared to do? They are prepared to pay compensation for land abandoned in Israel by Arabs who have fled. Not for Arabs whose homes were stolen away from them. Yeah. For Arabs who have fled. They fled. From what? We don't know. They fled. Already this is very suspect, because he's saying we are willing to help finance resettlement projects in neighboring countries. So already he is demanding that the actual moral solution of the refugees returning to the place that they were kicked out of, that they had to flee, from what? We don't know, that they had to flee. He's saying, of course they will not come back. Of course, they're crazy to think that they will come back. But we, in our enormous grace, are willing to pay money to the countries that were willing to accept them and to help finance resettlement projects. They have to accept the ethnic cleansing as a fact. And then we will be so gracious to pay for the project of ethnic cleansing. Wonderful.
Yeah.
But let's see how this continues. This again can only be arranged as part of a general peace settlement.
Yeah.
Okay, so for him, what does peace mean for a Zionist like Moshe Sharet? Peace means that they agree. They agree that the thing that was stolen from them was rightfully stolen from them and it does not belong to them anymore. That they should go somewhere else as we wanted. They first of all have to agree to our terms, and then maybe peace is possible. See again how the inversion, the complete inversion. If this was the other, yes, peace will be possible only when justice is attained. Only when you give the people that you stole from and killed, the minimal thing that you can give back. Only then is peace possible. The opposite is true. The opposite is true. And then he says, for when peace is negotiated, the payment of compensation by Israel for land abandoned by Arabs will not be the only financial item discussed. And then he exposes that he didn't even mean it to begin with.
Yeah.
Israel will claim damages from the aggressor state for losses sustained as the result of their aggression. What is their aggression? Their aggression was that they had the nerve to resist us taking their homes away from them. They had the nerve to resist. And they caused us great troubles because of this. And then they owe us as well. And when we do the calculation of who owes who, be careful, because maybe we will discover that you owe money to us. So he doesn't even intend to pay anything.
No, but I think you also miss something, because when he
Yes.
says the compensation, he says like who started the war? The Arab states. So
Yes.
they have to accept the Palestinian refugees and they have to compensate them,
Yes.
not us. Like,
Yes.
And it's something you hear in Israel all the time. Israel says, why don't they take them? Why? Like it's I think one of the basic ways of looking at this problem by Zionist eyes is like that the Arab states around, this is their responsibility.
Yes.
They have to accept them. And you know, this is part of what destabilizes the Middle East in general, because you make a refugee problem that flee all the states around you, and they have also to deal with a problem that you solved.
That you created.
That you not solved, that you created, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's part of this inversion. And I also wanted to add one thing, that you know what Muhammad said, that without recognizing this, there will be no peace, right? Like, and in Israel, I learned that without the Palestinian giving up this right, there will be no peace. And each time, like, you know, they say, but you know, the Zionist left have this pattern of like, they think the Palestinian gave it up, even though they never really gave it up.
Yes, they don't ask the Palestinians what they want. They just decide for the Palestinians,
you know,
what they
like,
want.
Like Abu Mazen, because he's like, you know, he's kind of a collaborator. He said one time that he agreed to give it up, and then the, you know, Zionist left. You see, we have partner. He gave it up, and then they disappointed that they don't give it up. But it's a game that they play with themselves.
Yes, they make a condition that they will only be willing to speak with Palestinians if the Palestinians recognize the right of Israel to exist, which means that they recognize that the crime that was done to them was okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That it should that there's no problem with this being done to them, and with them not getting any real compensation for it.
Yeah, and the thing is that, you know, the right of return could be negotiated and be solved, but it will have to mean necessarily that Israel stop being a Jewish state. And that's the thing, that's the issue.
In 1950, Israel enacted the Absentee Property Law, which allowed any Israeli government to seize the property and homes of refugees under the pretext they are absent. Despite the fact that Israel itself preventing their return.
So Muhammad mentions the Absentee Property Law in Israel. So in Hebrew, Chok Nichsei Nifkadim. I remember hearing this term once and again in my life, throughout my life, and until the moment that Muhammad explained what it was, I must admit my ignorance. I did not understand what it was. I thought it was like a normal law because it's like phrased in like this dry, you know, legalese, you know. So I thought it was like one of the laws of Israel, which was like neutral. But then let's read what it is. And I looked it up again on Hebrew Wikipedia so that we can read it in a critical way. And understand the Zionist propaganda system. So I will translate to English from Hebrew Wikipedia. The Absentee Property Law that was legislated in 1950 is a law that gives the state of Israel the properties of those who left it to the areas of enemy countries during the independence war or after it, and those who had foreign citizenship, and those who were in the part of Israel that was at that time held by forces that asked to prevent the forming of the state of Israel, or who fought it after it was formed. This is the description of the law in Hebrew Wikipedia. And see how crazy it is. What is the claim? The claim is that those people that we kicked out of their homes now belong to us if they meet one of these criteria. So one option is that they fled when we threatened them and used violence towards them and kicked them out of their house. If they fled, then it's ours. Another possibility is that they resisted. If they resisted, then they are enemies, right? If they resisted, then they are our enemies. So their homes are also ours. So if you don't resist, it's ours. If you resist, it's ours.
Yeah.
And in each case, they have their excuse.
Yeah, we see this all the time. Huh?
Yes.
If you resist, it's ours. If you don't resist, it's ours. But if you resist, we have an excuse to go more full power.
Yes.
And it's always this logic.
Yes, but also look again. Or those who were at the time in the part of Israel that was held at the time by forces that asked to prevent the starting of the State of Israel, or who fought the State of Israel after it was started. Okay, so it's not that you resisted. It's that you happened to live in a place where there were people who resisted. And look how this logic is the exact same logic used now to justify the genocide. If they do not resist, then we control them completely, all the time. If they resist, so now we have an excuse to kill them en masse. And who do we have an excuse to kill? Not just those who resisted, but those who happen to live in the same place as those who resisted.
Yeah.
And now they are our enemies. Why? Because they are near the people who are our enemies. Why? Because they resisted what we tried to do to them. The logic is the same.
Yeah. The same logic. It's people a lot of time mention Kafka about in this kind of situation. Do you know Kafka stories?
Yes.
So the trial that he one day wakes up and he understands that he's guilty and he doesn't know why he's guilty, and then he needs to go through a whole
yes,
this maze of laws and stuff, but it's useless because it's just the assumption that he's guilty. It's
yes. And I think that in many ways Kafka, he wrote about abstract things, but I think he also wrote about the experience of being Jewish in Germany. And when you are Jewish, when you are foreign, when you are undesirable, this is your situation. You are guilty until proven innocent. And how can you be proven innocent? No. So you are always guilty. Always, always, always guilty. And this is the situation of anyone who is a minority, or put in more accurate terms, who does not have the power in the situation and who is facing others who do have the power and want to get more and more and more. And another part of this law that I want to zoom into. So the properties of those who left to the territory of hostile nations.
Yeah.
So they say hostile nations. They say, I translated it as enemies, but the more accurate translation is hostile nations. Why are they hostile? Why are they hostile towards you? Do you bother asking the question of where this hostility comes from? No. They are just hostile. Why? Because they are anti-Semites, because they are Nazis, because everybody hates us, because they don't understand how right we are, because they are religious fanatics, because their culture is inferior, because they are monsters, because they are taught hate from age 0, so forth and so on. Always the hostility is not justified. It's just this hostility that we never know where it comes from. We don't understand why. Why are they so hostile?
Yeah, and it becomes like a logic because there was after 48 became like refugees in Jordan, in Lebanon, and this became a destabilizing thing for the countries around, and then Israel and then like you always have a reason to start a war. And now, like, you see Israel doing to Lebanon, like, what they're doing also to the Palestinian, and they use the same rhetoric. They use they talking about human shields as the justification to kill civilians. And you see that the moment you start treating like people like that, it expands to more, and that's why like Arabs and Muslims around the area see Israel as their problem, also because of solidarity, but also because it's like
because it's a real problem. It threatens it creates a situation where their life is way worse. The existence of Israel is a plague on the Middle East. The Middle East was better off without Israel. You have to understand this. And I just want to say to if there are still Israelis watching through some weird scenario. The fact that you deny who you are and what you are doing doesn't mean that the people around you also deny who you are and what you are doing. And who you are is a military base, a huge military base with millions of people, millions of soldiers, and so many people developing, weapons technology and so forth and so on. You are a military base of the United States that they stuck in the middle, in the heart of the Middle East. You are an extension of the empire. You are an extension of white supremacy. You are an extension of Western supremacy. You are an extension of imperialism and colonialism and capitalism. This is what you are. This is what you are. And you create instability and violence and conflict in this area by what you are doing. And what you are doing is killing and killing and killing and stealing and stealing and stealing and lying and lying and lying. And just because you deny it doesn't mean that you're victims. Deny it as well. And this is why they are hostile towards you. And this brings me back to a sentence that I said in one of our early episodes. The world doesn't hate you because they are anti-Semites. The world hates you because you are committing genocide.
This is a form of apartheid. يعني Israel allows any Jew from anywhere to travel, to immigrate to occupied Palestine, while it prevents Palestinians, refugees, from returning to their homeland.
I think about it, that this is the other side of the injustice. It's not just that you are stealing people's land. There is a constant stream of settlers from other countries who come and it's like a mirror. The people who and how Israel calls the law that allows any Jew around the world, Chok HaShvut, the law of return.
Yes.
And it's like, you cannot even think that it feels like it's mocking, the victim. It's like they're the people who are coming from other countries, they're not returning to anywhere,
It's just not true. It's just a false statement.
Yeah, and what Muhammad says, this is part of the apartheid, when Israelis think about the apartheid, they think what happens in the West Bank, that you have separate roads, and it's the most visible aspect of the apartheid. But the apartheid starts in the fact that you kick some people out and you allow other people
not just allow, but encourage and attract,
Yeah, and there are so many people who came here, and for them, they didn't think of, people who came from Soviet Union, for them it was okay, it was a shitty country, I have now other country offers me a place to, and people usually don't think too much, and they're offered a place, and it's not just immigrants, they come here and they get free schooling, and they get
they get a lot of privileges.
They get a lot of privileges, and they don't see the part of this machinery of injustice who keeps.
Yes, it's just pushing one population out and then pulling another population in.
It keeps happening. It keeps happening all the time.
A lot of very racist white people in the US talk about the Great Replacement. What is the Great Replacement? That they bring people from all around the world to replace them. So this is a bullshit theory, but look, here is the Great Replacement. They are kicking the Palestinians out and they're bringing Jews in instead. This is the Great Replacement.
Yeah, and I think that in the current days, it's really feels like some kind of American colony, because most of the Jews now are in the US, and they keep coming here, and they live and they go back and forth, between the metropole, which is the US, and they come here and they,
Yes, I sometimes have these surreal experiences where I'm walking in the street in Tel Aviv, for example, and I listen around me and I don't even hear Hebrew. Yeah. I hear English and I hear French and I hear Russian and I hear all kinds of languages, but Hebrew I don't hear. So maybe you have an argument for why people who are Hebrew speakers are indigenous to this land. Maybe. But these people are American, these people are Russian, these people are French.
Jerusalem feels to me like an American colony sometimes. Yes. You walk in the street.
Yes, a literal American
colony. Hear sometimes more English, not everywhere, but certain places.
Yes, and then I get genuinely upset. I'm like, fuck. Yes, I believe that anyone has the right to live anywhere that they want. This is my basic belief as an anarchist. Yeah. But when I see that people come from a different place to live here at the expense of others, I'm like, how does this person who was not born here and has no true connection to this place suddenly feel like more at home and has the right to be here and to live here and get privileges at the expense of someone who was actually
not persecuted. They're not persecuted in the US. You could say maybe during the times of persecutions of Jews in Europe, there was a case to say let's give them a safe place, but now it's even not the case.
Yes, I remember something that I saw on Instagram, like this very succinct summary of this point, where you see a screenshot of an article where the title is "We have no other country." This is like a cliche in Hebrew. "En lanu eretz acheret." It is even a song. "En lanu eretz acheret." So I have no other country. And then the first line of the article is that the guy who wrote the article lives in the US in Brooklyn.
But you know what's also funny?
He was born in the US, he lives in the US, but he has no other country other than Israel, where he never set foot.
And also funny thing that when I think about it, Israelis will say we cannot let now million refugees come in.
Yes.
But you allowed million of Russians and million of Americans. Why there?
And your law still allows it. You still attract more and more and more people. Decide.
No, but they're Jews, and I think they're.
So now we see you have more room for Jews. You have no more room for the Palestinians.
Yeah, the Russians.
This is the apartheid. You see apartheid staring you in the face.
And the Russian people who came here so many of them are not keeping any, part of Judaism. They're just literally Russian immigrants, which, many of them are my friends and I love them, but they're Russians,
Yeah. Sometimes you see these things in Israeli conversation, in Israeli expressions, so fucking clearly. Because what do they call this process? They call it המאבק הדמוגרפי.
Yeah.
The demographic struggle.
Yeah.
Which, when you actually explicitly say what it means replacing one population with another population,
Yeah.
with the ethnic cleansing, and replacing the ethnically cleansed population with another population. They state in the clearest of terms that they are doing this to have more people on their side, and this comes back to your leftist friend who said, I don't want to be a minority. So we have to bring more people from the outside and also encourage Jewish women to give more and more birth so that there are more Jews here. We must keep the Jewish majority. We must keep the Jewish majority. They say this in the most direct of ways. Even the most leftist of Zionists will say this without batting an eye.
The Intifada was crashed with extreme violence, and around 1,200 Palestinians were killed in Gaza and West Bank.
Yes.
After the Intifada was crashed or suppressed, Oslo Accords was signed, bringing intentional hope to Palestinians with the promise of a state on a small part of their land. They believed the Israeli military rule in Gaza Strip and West Bank would come to an end. But until today, 30 years later, the situation has only got worse. The military occupation continues. Settlements expand daily. And Palestinian, as you know, Palestinians are being exterminated and displaced in Gaza. Most Palestinians now release that Oslo Accords and the two-state solution, or I don't prefer to say solution because it's not a solution. The two-state proposal were a lie and a trap. They see the agreement served only to entrash settlements and to maintain the occupation.
So Mohammad mentioned the Oslo Accords, and he said that in his opinion this was just a trap to manipulate the Palestinian people. Do you want to explain further why you also think that it was a trap actually?
Yeah. So I think like there's a lot to say about this, but first of all, I think the way Israel works, like the idea was to create separation, right? When Israel talks about peace, they say we need to separate from the Palestinians. We hear that a lot.
The two-state solution of the Zionist left.
Yeah, and you know they divided the territory. It was supposed to be like step-by-step program that at the end go to full withdrawal.
Yes.
And they divided the territory to
bring peace. And what kind of peace? The exact kind of peace that charade was speaking about. The peace where they accept the thing that was done to them as okay.
Yeah, but it was supposed at least to limit the settlements expansion.
Yes.
And I think Arafat said, okay, at least we will stop it at some point. Like he understood he cannot completely get the whole Palestinian cause, but at least they will stop settlement.
Yes, he tried the pragmatic approach.
Yeah, at least. And what happened that they divided the area to area C, which is full with, it's like, I think it's like 60% of the West Bank, and then you have A, which is I think A and B, which one of them, I don't remember, is like Palestinian Authority, and B is like joint. I don't remember the details.
Look how complicated it is.
Yeah.
Our suggestion is one democratic state for all the inhabitants between the river and the sea. I just said it, I finished saying it, this is all it is.
Yeah.
What is the Oslo Accord? You have area A, you have a... Try to explain it, you won't finish explaining it, and no one will understand it. This is how complicated it is.
Yeah, but at the end what happens that, you know, it closed the Palestinian in enclaves, that they became more locked in them. Like before the Oslo, they at least have some freedom of movement, that they can go into Israel and work, and actually tightened the control over these enclaves, and the settlements on the sea area, which remained in Israeli control. There is an ongoing ethnic cleansing that keeps happening there, and it keeps happening until today.
And the UN is constantly saying, stop it, stop it, stop it. And Israel, who is a active member of the UN, is not abiding by the rules of the UN.
Yeah.
Again.
And
again.
And again, also the idea of separation allow Israel always to be more violent to the Palestinians. So like it says we're separating as if with withdrawing from the occupation. So it achieved many things also. First, it created the Palestinian Authority as collaborator. It made a lot of stuff that Israel had to do before, because what the Palestinians had to give in return, they had to start policing themselves, and to oppress the resistance from within.
Yes.
And Israel said, we acknowledge the Palestinian Authority as legitimate representation of the Palestinian. It's like supposed to be some kind of peace. But what happened that Arafat started oppressing the Palestinian within, and it became even more severe.
Yes.
And that's why the Hamas rejected Oslo, and Mohammed said it in the...
And this is what happens with fascist movements, right? Anytime that there is resistance, so Fatah was resistance to the Zionist project, and what did they do? They offered them bakshish, they offered them a bribe to make them into collaborators. And look what happened. So the Zionists always say, why aren't the Palestinians more pragmatic? Why aren't they more pragmatic? If only they were pragmatic, they would get what they want.
Yeah.
They would not suffer our violence if they were only more pragmatic. But Arafat tried to be pragmatic, and look what he got. His entire movement was manipulated into becoming collaborators of the thieves, of the murderers. This is what he got for being pragmatic. And when Zionists ask me, why aren't the Palestinians pragmatic? It's because they tried the supposed pragmatic approach, and they got total betrayal from you. So this is why they're not more pragmatic.
But I just want to add one last thing. Before we did this video, we saw an interview with Ghassan Kanafani, right?
Yes.
Palestinian writer and resistance leader, and he was smarter, I think. Than
So this haughty British reporter comes and he asks him, but why don't you just sit down and talk with the Israelis? All kinds of naive questions.
And he said conversation between whom? Between the sword and the neck?
Yes.
He understood from before that you cannot negotiate with your colonizer.
You cannot negotiate with terrorists. This is what he understood. And I think this exposes another aspect of the Zionist logic, the Zionist mentality. So this was a ploy that they, a manipulation that they did to quash their resistance. But look what happened. So the Zionists always think that they can manipulate their way into getting what they want.
They succeeded in some level.
Yes, they succeeded in the near future, they succeeded to get something that they want. But what was the direct result of this manipulation? That the Palestinians saw what happened, they saw their conditions getting worse, and they understood that they were manipulated. Those who didn't understand before understood after that they were manipulated, because they did not disappear. They are still people who are living here, and they understood your manipulation. It worked on the short term, but in the long term they understood. And they understood that there is no negotiating with terrorists like you, the Zionists, and that the only thing that you understand is force. So they understood that the only thing that they can do to improve their condition is to use force against you, because talking to you didn't help, because negotiating with you didn't help. It only made their situation worse. Why? Because you tried to manipulate them. So in your attempt to manipulate your so-called enemy, you created the frustration and the condition in your so-called enemy that made them want to resist you with force. And again and again and again, you think you can manipulate your way into getting what you want. And this may work in small ways in the short term, but it will never work in the meaningful ways, and it will never work in the long term. And you must understand this.
Yeah, and just last point that I want to say about this, many Israelis talk about peace, 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 you know, and I read a book that is called by Jeff Halper, which is a really cool activist who came to Palestine as just as American. I don't know how, and he understood what's happening here, and he said like, when you have a settler colonial situation, you cannot talk about peace like as if it's two national movements. It's not. Yes. You can only talk about decolonizations because the colonizer will never have a good faith, you know, talk with its colonized people. And this is what like Hassan Kanafani says, and like it never happens. It's not just Zionists, like Zionism is a form of like colonialism, and that's what I think.
We have to say this. There's a very simple way to say this. This is not a discussion. This is a hostage situation.
Yeah.
You took an entire people hostage. Millions of people are refugees, which is a very deep form of being a hostage. You complain about the Palestinians taking hostage, but the entire Palestinian people are your hostages. Those thousands who are held in administrative arrest, really like direct hostages, no one can deny this. You can. But no sane person can deny this. But the entire Palestinian people are your hostages because they are held because they were driven from their land. They are held in concentration camps. They are held under occupation, and some of them are just refugees and they don't have anywhere to go. So all of them are hostages in some sense, and it is your doing.
The situation in area, the normalization in our and the Abraham agreements.
Trump was cooperating with Israel and other Middle Eastern countries, Arab countries in the Middle East, to kind of legitimize Israel and to kind of take the Palestinian struggle away from international discussion. Mohammed here is talking about the Abraham Accords that were normalization agreements between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. And now a lot of Israelis like to fly to Abu Dhabi and have fun there and I don't know, go to prostitutes and gamble and do all kinds of nifty things that they like really much.
Business.
But so this is a perk of the Abraham Accords for the Israelis, but the true intention of the Abraham Accords and the entire process that was happening, during Trump's presidency, first presidency, I must say now, unfortunately, through Trump's first presidency, he cooperated with Netanyahu and Israel to achieve a normalization of Israel in the Middle East. There was a problem. The problem was that a lot of Arab countries in the Middle East didn't really like the existence of Israel there, and they kind of insisted on supporting the Palestinians, those pesky Palestinians. So they wanted to normalize everything above the heads of the Palestinians. Again, we see the same phenomena, the same phenomenon of Israel trying to use manipulation in order to solve the problem without really solving the problem. Okay?
By the way, I think like they already had a lot of like relations and economic.
Yes.
It was just making it official. I don't think like.
Yes, because the U.S. already installed puppet governments in all these Arab nations in order to advance its own interests of getting cheap oil to run their huge jeeps and to run their murderous imperial military. So anyway, this process represented by the Abraham Accords was another attempt at manipulation, at supposedly solving the problem of the Palestinians without actually solving the problem of the Palestinians, without actually speaking to Palestinians, without actually seeing what they want and giving them the things that they want and deserve to have a good and normal life and to have justice. So, what happened after this process? The Palestinian cause was beginning to be erased and erased and erased from public consciousness, and especially from Israeli consciousness.
Yeah.
And a lot of Palestinians started becoming more and more and more desperate. And this is combined with the great marches of return, which we will be reaching very soon and discussing very soon. And the Palestinians felt, a lot of Palestinians felt, and I think rightly so, that they have no other choice but to be violent towards Israel, because the Israelis proved that they only bother to consider the Palestinians when the Palestinians are being naughty, when the Palestinians are resisting. That's the only situation in which the Israelis are willing to even consider the existence of the Palestinians.
Not that they make them a bit change their ways, it makes them more violent, but
Yes.
then it makes the world notice the violent, and the Palestinian become an issue in the world stage. I think that's what Hamas understood. I don't know, and this is what happened, you know.
Yes.
Like the Palestinian issue is now back on the world consciousness. In that way, they succeeded.
And Mohammed started with saying that anyone who understands the situation in the Gaza Strip before October 7th will understand why October 7th happened. And this is true, but I think another way to understand why October 7th happened is to see the kind of tricks that Israel was trying to pull in the years before. And Israel was trying, again, to solve the problem without solving the problem. And when you try to go in roundabout ways, you get what's coming to you, but you get it from directions that you do not expect, or that you should have expected, but because of your insanity you didn't expect. And this is exactly what happened on October 7th.
And you know, like, I think when you did polls on Israeli society about what bothered them, like in the elections, before elections, like the Palestinian issue didn't even arise.
It was a non-issue.
And Bibi said, I remember in interviews, he said, like, all the time people thought that in order to have peace with the Arab states, we need to first solve the Palestinian issue, and I am so smart and I understood you can go around it, you know, and he felt that he's such a big genius, and now it's blue in his face.
I want to say something about Israeli mentality that I think our audience should understand. So, when Israelis are abroad, they go to visit other countries, as opposed to people from Gaza who cannot go to visit other countries. The vast majority of the time, Israelis like to go to visit other countries. But they don't like to actually talk to the people who live in those other countries. They like to behave in like mischievous ways to get one up on those other people, the goyim.
Yeah.
The goyim. The goyim are always a rival that you have to like fool and get the best of. And they think that all the tricks that they use to kind of try to manipulate other people, that they are being clever. But to me, this was always cringe, this kind of behavior, because I wasn't doing this. I was seeing other Israelis try to do this to non-Israeli people. And it was always cringe to me, because I understood that the other person always knows that they are...
It's embarrassing.
They always see through these manipulations. They are very transparent. You are not clever.
Yeah.
And the Israelis still think that they are clever. Look at how this is happening now. The Israelis still use the same talking points to try to convince people that they are in the right, even though they are committing genocide. And they don't see how all their demagogy and their rhetorical tricks are so transparent to anyone with half a brain. They see right through it. But the Israelis don't see that other people see them.
But you know, when you let somebody lie and deceive for so long, he loses grips of reality. It's like a spoiled kid that never showed any healthy boundaries.
Which is what is called a narcissist.
But you know, like,
and this is the collective mental illness that we talk about. This is why
it's painful, and this is why, like, you have to. Yeah, that's why the world will have at some point stop Israel. I hope. I don't know.
Okay, so at this point we feel like we've been talking for quite a long time, and I think there was like a subject that we kept going around, and the subject is deconstructing what Zionism is doing, and how this is just a failed project to try to make the Palestinians and their just cause disappear, and that this is only creating a situation which is worse and worse and worse and worse, and this is why we want to dismantle the Zionist project.
Yeah, and it's always like we see first how much like it's some kind of a fractal that you see the same patterns everywhere, and what we saw in history keeps happening today. And it's like in a way it's kind of how you start from original lie and then you just protect that lie, so you have to lie more. And I don't know, it's kind of, what does it tell us? What is the lesson of this story? If you would have to take the story of Zionism and try to say what is your lesson about life, about history, about reality, do you have something that you can point to? I don't know.
That's a very interesting question, and I think what we need to learn is that if there is a problem, the only way to improve the situation is to face the problem head on, is to acknowledge the reality of the problem, is to acknowledge what is going on, is to acknowledge yourself, to acknowledge the bad things that you did, to take responsibility for what you did, to be in a place of true camaraderie, true compassion, true honesty, true openness, to achieve true justice, to really listen to other people. That this is the only way to improve the situation. And if you continue to deny and to cheat and to lie and to steal and to kill and to, just create problems for everybody, and to not be aware of yourself, and to not do this process of looking at yourself honestly and speaking to others honestly and taking responsibility for yourself, then you will only continue creating more problems and more problems and more problems. And again, this is just narcissism, and when I think of Zionism as a persona, when I think of like this organism of Zionism, I try to imagine what kind of personality it has. There is a huge personality defect here, and the personality defect is one of narcissism, of dishonesty.
Yeah.
And I think this exactly leads us to what we are trying to do now. We are trying to actually listen to people, to really understand what the problem is, to really look for solutions, to not run away from the problem. And this is exactly why we wanted to talk to Mohammad. And I think that it is amazing that by having one conversation of 90 minutes with one person from Gaza, we already understood so much. And this is just because I think we tried to listen honestly to what he was saying, to understand exactly what he was saying, and he said to us in no uncertain terms, the root of the issue is that I am a refugee. Is that there are millions of refugees here, and we take this seriously. And we see how this one kernel of truth just solves all the supposed conundrums that we have when talking to Zionists. We can just dismantle their arguments completely. Because we didn't listen carefully enough until now. I must admit this. But we are trying. So here we did the thing, and we understood more what the root of the problem is, and now we can fight it more effectively. And Mohammed, we hope you see that we are doing our best to really get at the heart of the problem, and to talk about things as honestly as we can, and to offer real solutions.
Yeah. And let's hope that we're gonna have more of this conversation with Muhammad, with people on the other side. At the moment we speak to them, we see there's no sides, right?
Yes.
There's
Yes.
like we're
That we are on the same side.
we're on the same side, we're people, you know. And maybe when I think about also the original sin is the refusal of the Zionist movement ever to see the Palestinians as people.
Yes.
Like and it's also like the main issue of equality, like because when we speak as equals, you know, like we're not equal in the material sense. He is on a super hard situation, but as people we're equal, and we're having a conversation, and like we meet each other exactly at the same place.
And then we have no choice but to want things to be also equal materially, right?
Yeah.
It just implied immediately that this is what we want. And we are willing to say this in a very direct way. What we want is equality for all. What we want is redistribution of resources. What we want is right of return. Whatever this looks like in practical reality, this is what we want. What we want, for the time being anarchist, we want no states, but for the time being, what we want is one democratic state for all. And this is exactly what we are going to talk about with Muhammad in the second part of the interview.
Yeah.
And this is why we want to talk about this, because we believe that this is the right path forward to achieve true justice here.
Yeah.
So we only commented on about half of the first part of our conversation with Muhammad, but I kind of feel like this is going to be an endless conversation that we continue having for maybe years to come until we actually free Palestine and achieve this vision, which I believe that we are on our way to doing.
Yeah.
But we have been talking for a long time, so thank you very much to those of our audience that kept with us so long. And Elik, any final remarks before we close this special episode?
Just, you know, having this conversation make me really want to be able to meet him in person. And when we ended the interview, we had this mixed feeling of like sadness and joy and horror and hope, right? Both of us, I think,
felt
exactly
we felt all the feelings. Yes.
All the feelings, and
Okay, so thank you very much to our audience. Thank you so much, Elik. Thank you again, Muhammad, for agreeing to speak with us and for having such meaningful conversations. And we hope that we, cracked through the wall of separation, and that the small light that is coming out from each side will guide us through the rest of our path.
Yeah.
Okay, so peace and justice for all. Resist Zionism. Vive la révolution.
Yeah.